The business, taking care of the supplies.
The supplies, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think you heard the boring story long enough now, don't you think?
No, now we have to go back to the ancestors. I want to know more about Granny's, your mother's father.
My mother's mother?
Well, both. Mother's mother and mother's father.
Well, the name was Vandy Hooten. It was I think my grandfather was Dutch, and my mother's family came from England. And my mother was one of about 10 children. Only 2 of whom are still living. My father died at the age of 49. My mother died at the age of 88.
Tell them why your mother died.
Why she died?
Yeah, Granny.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, you told me something I thought was interesting about Granny. She lived in this nice apartment in Oak Park. I used to go visit her as I was growing up, and she'd take me down to Marshall Fields, and we'd have peanut butter sandwiches and look at the big Christmas tree if it was Christmas time. And she had a couple of men who wanted to marry her. And she used to date them, but she would never get married again. And let's see, how old was she when your father died?
45.
Oh, she was.
Mm-hmm.
So she never remarried, but she did date this couple of, I've forgotten their names. What were they?
One was Bob somebody, and I don't recall the other.
Yeah.
Bob was a Christian Scientist.
Oh, and you said earlier your father was a Christian Scientist.
Well, he was a lot of things, but during the last year or so, he was a Christian Scientist, yes.
And when he was sick there, just before he died, you were telling us about your father in Christian Science.
Yes, well, he had a reader read for him.
They don't know what that means.
You don't know what that means? To have somebody pray for you if you're a Christian Scientist?
They don't know
You
what that
can
means.
have somebody pray for you, and they don't have to come to the house like a priest and all that. They just pray for you from a distance. And the scientists didn't believe much in doctors, but we still had a doctor for my father. And then he had 2 very good friends who were scientists. They were, I'd say they were fanatics or zealots.
Earlier this evening you called me a zealot. That's why.
So he died at the age of 49.
What did he die of?
Tubercular meningitis. It's a disease now that I guess they can take care of with medication, but in those days they couldn't. My grandmother died of tuberculosis. My father had a couple of sessions of tuberculosis, and my father was a great joiner. He was rarely home at night. He was always out at meetings. He drank too much, and he'd go into a tubercular sanitarium for a few months, and they would tell him how he should live, and he'd just go right back living as he did before. So he didn't take care of himself, and died young. But I've always been very grateful to me, because he sent me to a wonderful boys' camp every summer for 6 years, where I went for 8 weeks every summer, and it was just wonderful.
Well, one thing you say, how your father didn't take care of himself, I know from my perception, you've taken very good care of yourself. Because when I used to come and visit you, you would always put out a vitamin for me. And was it because your father didn't take care of himself that you chose to?
I think that has something to do with it, and I think that's one reason I never drank very much. But I remember trying to get you interested in health foods. And as a little girl, I took Di to a little farm place that served only health foods and things that were grown without fertilizers and all that. And she almost starved to death. She didn't eat anything the whole weekend. Remember that?
No.
But,
I remember trying to catch minnows in a stream, though.
No, but she's changed quite a bit since then about health foods.
Something must have stuck.
I was talking about Granny, and that I remember I went to visit you in Chicago several years back, and I wanted to go and visit her like I had done when I was growing up. And I guess I did go to see her, and I was asking her about her ancestors.
Yes.
And she got very upset and said, "It makes me tired. I don't want to think about it. Don't ask me any questions."
I see.
And which was really disturbing to me because I really wanted to know.
Yes. Well, her mother came from England. Her father, I think, came over was a member of the family that came over very early. My mother had, as I mentioned, about 11 siblings.
I know. Didn't your father, weren't they interested in spiritualism or something? Went to a spiritualist kind of a church?
No, my grandfather was a hypnotist.
Oh, okay. Your grandfather.
My grandfather,
Well, that was Granny's father.
Yeah, Granny's father was a hypnotist. And he got into a lot of different activities. He was on the stage as a hypnotist. He sold pancake flour, Vans pancake flour.
Oh, look at that. I want to do pancake flour.
He got into the automobile supply business. And he was always getting into different activities, as a lot of people did at that time, moving around from one business to another. And he had all the boys working for him. He had about four or five sons, and they all just worked with him in the automobile supply business and pumping gas and things like that.
Huh.
I had an uncle who was just 9 months older than I was. My grandmother had her last child just about the same time that my mother had me.
Huh.
So
where did they live? What town did they?
They lived in Chicago.
Oh, did they?
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Right there, pretty close to you?
No, on Sacramento Boulevard, which is near Kedzie.
That's on the south side.
North, little north,
Oh.
yes.
Did you have much contact with your grandparents when you were a kid?
Oh, when I was young, I had a great deal, yes. But later I didn't when I went away to school.
Uh-huh. And then your father had some brothers.
3 brothers. He had 3 brothers.
Art and Ed.
Art and Ed and Ted.
Yeah.
And they all outlived him by quite a number of years. And one widow is still living.
Arlene?
No, Arlene's dead. But Louise Elworth, Art's wife, is still living.
Uh-huh.
And she's getting quite feeble and senile.
Now, what kind of businesses were your uncles in?
Well, Art was a lawyer.
Oh, was he?
And Ted, I think Ted had something to do with insurance. And he was a fanatic on pyramids.
Oh, really? How, like in what way?
Well, he was always talking about pyramids and the number 7 and things of that sort. He was a zealot.
Runs in the family.
Yes.
Huh. Well, getting back to Granny and her last few years, didn't she spend in a convalescent hospital?
Oh, yeah. She was on the street in Oak Park and fell, and her hip either broke as a result of the fall, or the fall was caused by the broken hip. And then she went to the hospital, and from the hospital to a nursing home. And she always thought that she would be returning to her apartment, but after she'd been in the nursing home for about a year, my sister and I just gave up her apartment and dismantled it. But up until the time she died, she was always looking forward to going back to her home. And it was nice that she had that feeling that it was there for her whenever she got better.
Because you never told her you dismantled it.
Oh, no. She liked that feeling that it was there
Yeah.
Or just like people like to feel that heaven is there for them and all that.
Even though it isn't.
For them, for some.
But didn't you tell me too that she, I guess after her hip healed, she really didn't seem to have the energy to get up and walk. That she mostly just stayed in bed.
She didn't want to. The last few years she didn't want to get up a great deal. And she thought it was much better for her and just to lie in bed. And of course that's the worst thing you can do is just lie in bed. So it was more difficult as she got older and more feeble to get her up to move around.
Was she? Go ahead.
Well, the main thing is to move around, even though it's an effort.
And you used to go visit her, and like wasn't it the convalescent hospital close to where you live?
Oh yes, I spent a great deal of time with her, and Lucille died, and then my mother died about a year later. And Lucille had a sister and 4 nieces, 2 of whom are nuns, and there are a great many children in that family now. Even though 2 of the 5 children were nuns, the other 3 were extremely productive. One had 10 children, another had 9 children, and another had 3. And they're starting to produce again. So, I went to a recent wedding, and Mill Brown, who's the mother of this family, said, I have two grandchildren or great-grandchildren in process working right now at another table.
So what is your secret? You don't seem to have any inkling of slowing down at all. Are you going to continue to work? Do you have any goals in terms of
Retirement?
Yeah, retiring somewhere down the road? Would you like to retire, say, to Florida? Or
I don't think I would. I see so many retired people down there, and they really don't know what to do with themselves. And I think many of them are unhappy, although they won't admit it. I think it's just great to have a little something to do and an office to go to. And I think the worst thing you can do is retire and have nothing to do. And I enjoy going to my office. I even like to go Saturday morning and Sunday morning instead of just rattling around my apartment alone. And I don't always go down there to work for clients. I may go down to work on my income tax return or pay my bills and things of that sort. But it's like having a little study, only the study is not part of your house. It's just a little distance away. It's just a nice walk to it. And when I walk, I have a destination instead of just wandering around with no destination. But I have no plans to do anything other than that in the foreseeable future. And I only work about 6 hours a day. I work until noon, then I take a walk in the park, and then I'll take a little nap, then I'll have lunch, then I'll come back at 2 and work until 4:45. Then I'll go back to the club, and I'll ride the bicycle and swim a little, and then I'll walk home or take the bus home. And that takes care of the day quite adequately.
So you go to the club every day?
Every day. I stop there on the way home.
And you've been doing that for years, even before you lived where you lived, didn't you?
Oh yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I remember going to visit you when the boys had been, when we all stopped to visit you, and then I stayed with you for a while. And you would get up on Saturday morning and go down to the office, which was quite a distance then because you lived on the south side.
Yes, yes.
It took, what, how long to get to your office?
Oh, on the train it would take me about 45 minutes.
Uh-huh. And then you would kind of get everything wrapped up from the week before and all neat and organized, and then you'd go play golf, I guess, on Saturday afternoon. And then Sunday morning you'd get up and you'd go down to the office and get everything laid out for Monday morning for your secretary. Is that, yeah, and I just remembered that.
It got to be a habit. And I'm not sure in retrospect it was a good habit.
You had a heart condition several years back, too. Probably, what, 20 years ago now, wasn't it?
About 13.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was quite a heart condition. It was a full-fledged heart attack.
And that was the year that I was staying with you.
Oh, that's right.
You'd taken me to the
I was
train.
driving you around, and I felt this business in the heart, and went to see the doctor Saturday. He said, if you take these pills, you're okay. That night I didn't feel good, so he said, go to the hospital. So I went out and lifted up the garage door and got into the car and drove to the hospital, and they kept me there.
So you didn't pass out or anything?
No. But they kept me there for 3 weeks or so, and then it was a long process of recovering.
Because you had put me on the train to go down to Moline to spend, I think, Christmas with my mother and stepdad.
Probably the night before I went to the hospital.
Right.
I think, yes.
And then when I was down there, Lucille called me and said that you'd had a heart attack and were in the hospital.
Yes, that was a great surprise to me because I didn't smoke and I exercised.
What reasons did they give you that?
They didn't give me any reason.
No reason, just happened.
Just happened, yes.
And then it took you weren't able to play golf or anything for about how long?
Oh, quite a long time.
A year?
Probably.
But now you play golf how frequently?
As much as I can.
You played tennis when you were
yes,
in college,
I played tennis a little.
Because I have pictures of you and Mother with tennis.
I had a
rackets.
metal racket. Remember when they had metal rackets?
They
Metal
do?
strings? They still do?
Yeah.
No, I don't think the metal strings.
Not metal strings. I've heard that they have.
Yes.
I have a picture of you with the tennis string.
I see.
And you played what?
A picture.
Oh, that's all right.
Well, should we get on with the eating again now?
The
Eating.
eating.
You haven't eaten much. Maybe you want some refreshment.
Actually, I have eaten a lot here. Very tasty.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, I'd like to know where okay, you said that Granny's family was in Chicago, her mother and father, and her brothers and sisters grew up there. And she has 2 left. And where are they living now?
Well, her sister Eva is in a nursing home in Detroit. And Al Van is in Treasure Island in Florida.
Now you call him Van, and yet wasn't it Van de Houten?
Yes.
Did they drop the Houten?
No, we just used Van as a short reference.
Oh, I see. And what did he do? You know? Did any of the boys do hypnotism or anything, follow in the father's footsteps or anything?
No.
Did you ever see him do hypnotize people?
I never did. I've seen pictures of him on the stage with a tuxedo, and my mother says standing next to him as his assistant.
Oh, really? Where would that picture might be? Do you have it?
Al Van has it. He has quite a book of history of the family.
Oh, and great. So you're going to see about...
I'll see about taking his deposition.
Okay, great.
Can we turn this off now?
I'm trying to go on to sneeze, so I can't turn it off.
Have to ask you
You
some
can just get up and leave. Goodbye.
Shall I bring you some grapes while you're on stage?
Well, I have sure.
Okay, I'll bring you
Sure, that
bring you
would
some
be
supplies.
fine.
They don't have you on any kind of medication for that part.
No, they in fact, they never did. I was surprised.
Well, now you take vitamins again, or still, don't you?
Oh, sure.
What kind of vitamins do you take?
Well, I don't think this would be of historical significance.
Well, who knows? See, it
Yeah,
might develop into a
For
commercial.
Diane it is.
Might convince some of your grandchildren to take some supplements. This one doesn't do that.
He probably doesn't need it.
Candy.
He eats meat.
Yeah.
But one thing I regret is that I didn't have a closer relationship with Di and with my grandsons in California. I regret that
Well, we regret that too.
because you were so far away because of the disintegration of the first marriage I had. But we're trying to pick up the pieces a little, I think, and make up for lost time at a very late date. But I tried to keep up with it as best I could. But
Oh, he was wonderful. Daddy would send me letters every few months or call me up, and I was always busy, too busy doing something or other, and he would go for months and months and months and never hear from me.
Oh,
And
you-
he kept the contact going. And even when I was a little kid, he would always send me money for Christmas or for my birthday. And I would go visit him in Chicago like once or twice a year. And he'd pick me up at the train and keep me for...
I remember one time you flew into Chicago and the plane didn't stop at Chicago. It just went right on to Detroit. And then you had to work your way back because the airport was closed in. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think I was older.
You were older, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm. And I remember one time I took one of the boys to the airport, and they were on standby to fly back to California.
That was Jack.
Yeah, I was on standby. I think
had to
you
wait a
stayed there at the airport with me till about 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember getting on early in the morning.
And wasn't Rob with you or Rick?
I think I was the only one that went.
Or on another plane. Maybe they went on an earlier
Yeah.
plane.
See, I wouldn't let all three of them fly together. I was a Jewish mother.
Yes.
So Rick and Rob came back on one plane, and Jack
And Jack on another.
And Jack, so you didn't have to, but you did wait with Jack until there was a flight available for him. What are some of the experiences that you had with me when I was growing up and coming to visit you? Like, I know you took me and Granny and Lucille and you, we went to George Williams College Camp a couple of summers, I think, for a week or two.
Oh, yes. And then on one occasion I took you and Ann Brown
Right.
up to a camp in Michigan.
Right, that was great.
George was quite young, and you and Ann were, 15 or 16 years old.
Right,
Hmm.
yeah.
Yes, that was interesting. And then I had a summer cottage at the Dunes, which is near Chicago on the beach of Lake Michigan. And then your mother and your father went to that cottage on their honeymoon.
Do you have any
Right
funny
after
stories to tell about that?
No, do you?
Didn't you and somebody else provide some money or some canned goods or something for us to take to the cabin?
Oh yes, there was a big lot of canned goods to take to the cabin. And I still remember waiting the train or something, and Di, the new bride, took this great big bag of canned goods and slung it over her back, and Jack says, "Don't do that. That doesn't look right." Do you remember that?
Well, I don't remember that, but I remember that somebody had given us money or something to buy this food, and we hadn't stayed the whole week because it rained so much. And I didn't want to leave that food there, so I put it all in a bag.
And you brought it back, huh?
Dragged it to the airport, to the train station, and it was really heavy.
Yes, it was very
I was
heavy,
with
yes.
Lee.
But Di still doesn't like to leave any food around.
She doesn't like to leave much around. She,
I like to stuff it all in the refrigerator or in the other room. Oh dear.
Well, I think we can turn it off now. I think that was very nice of you, Jack, to